Hello and welcome to Positive Pulse, a Brookfield Properties initiative to keep you healthy and safe. There's no denying that the pandemic situation has made all of us nervous and anxious about what the future could hold for us. And everything does seem uncertain right now. How do you deal with this uncertainty? And not just deal with it, but cope with it, and how do you actually make the most of it? My guest today is Dr. Marcus Ranney. He is a distinguished psychologist, published author, and a keynote speaker at the World Economic Forum. Dr. Marcus Ranney also serves as the general manager of Thrive Global in India. This is a US-based behavior change tech and media company founded by none other than Arianna Huffington. His session today is Thriving in the New Normal. This is aimed at helping all of us to focus on the positivity of the moment and prioritize self-care. It's an interactive session, and we have people joining us from Equinox, Powai Business District, Candor Tech Space, which is in Mumbai, Gurgaon, Noida, and Kolkata. So all of you who are joining us, keep your phones ready for some live polling. Slido.com is a site that you can open, and of course on your browser, and you could of course also do a live polling through a scan on your phone. But let me welcome our guest, Dr. Ranney. Dr. Ranney, thank you so much for joining us. You know, I'm going to start with just a very basic question. So much uncertainty. Everyone's worried about something or the other. I'm wondering whether you have that magic mantra to teach all of us how to thrive in this changed world. It seems like a really big and a tall task.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. And welcome to everyone joining in and everyone who's watching the program today. I'm going to hopefully be in a position to provide each of you with some really helpful small micro steps that will start to create change in your life. I'm just going to pull up a presentation which I'll walk through together. And let me know once that's visible on your screen.
Yes, it's visible. You can go ahead.
Fantastic. So 4 main parts of our agenda today, we're going to start by understanding what are the challenges, what are the mindsets that we each had coming into this period of time, which has been called the new normal. We'll then look at the importance of prioritizing self-care, physical, mental, and emotional through that. And then we'll be applying all of those learnings towards enhancing our productivity to be more productive, more resilient, more innovative and creative, both in our personal lives and our professional lives. And finally, we'll have the opportunity at the end for about 6 or 7 minutes for some questions as well. A little bit about us. We are a behavior change company. We work with organizations around the world for their employees to help create and then sustain behavior habits around well-being and performance. And as you rightly mentioned when we began, the big elephant in the room right now is novel coronavirus, COVID-19, simultaneous public health disaster and economic catastrophe. And each of these two elements is impacting us all in some way or the other, either in our personal lives or in our professional lives. But what we're seeing because of this great uncertainty around us, there is a heightened sense of anxiety in the zeitgeist right now within India and across the world. And in many ways, this is similar to this image on the screen, a hurricane. A hurricane is a complex whirlwind of individual data points, seemingly chaotic, negative, strong-willed, uncertain, volatile, etc. But if one has the opportunity to step back, you can actually regard the pattern which forms. But more interestingly, is within this chaos, there is actually a point in time wherein there is complete stillness, there is complete calm. And that's called the eye of the hurricane. And that's where I hope to bring each of you on with me today and train you in a method which you can hopefully continue to be in that eye as you progress through this period of time. Because what I've understood, and I'm sure you've got the realization as well, that the reason why we are anxious right now is because of one of two things. Either it is something that has happened in our past, we are ruminating about a thought, did I do the right thing? Did I take the right action? Could I have done that differently? Or we are anxious about the future, neither of which we have any control over. That's one thing I can guarantee. The only thing we have any control over is actually being physically present in the moment, in the stillness of the eye of the hurricane. And I'd like you to keep imagining this as we go through our conversation today. So now's the time for your mobile phone. It's weird, right, for a speaker to actually encourage you to take out your phone, but I'm actually going to need you to do this so that we can do a live poll right now. All you need to do is turn on the camera. The camera will read the QR code automatically on the screen, and it will take you to a website called slido.com. This is the hashtag you need to enter, BF08, capital BF08, Brookfield Properties and today's date. And the first question you're going to see on your screens in front of you, which I'll pull up, is right now, today, how stressed are you feeling? One person has already participated in that. Fantastic. So this is a live counter of exactly what's going on in real time. I'm seeing the information come to me. If someone could help me by telling me how many people we have on the call right now, that will help me gauge how far along we've progressed. But you'll see.
We have about 31 people right now.
Okay, fantastic. So there's a counter at the top right, and that counter tells me in real time. So you can see 4 people have taken the poll so far. 7, 8, 9, 10 have been their scores. So the blue line represents the most frequently inserted point. So 5 people have all inserted 5 different data points, which is why all 5 are showing in blue, but that will begin to change. And the second thing to notice is the average score, the mean, which is the number in the oval at the top. So we had 5 people. I want to encourage more people to do this. Let's try and get up to at least 20 to 25 individuals to provide the score. The QR image is on the top left-hand corner, or you just go to slido.com. It's as easy as that. Use your mobile phone or your internet browser, and you just have to enter the hashtag BF08. So we've got 6. If we can get some more, let's try and at least get up to double digits so that we get a nice representation.
Could you just take us through the code again? It's
BF.
BP0.
BF for Brookfield. BF08.
Got it.
Yeah, Brookfield. I think that's how they spelled it. Brookfield 08. So great. We've got 8 people. You can see there are 2 blue lines, 3 now. So 8, 9, and 10. So a lot of people polling in the extreme end of the spectrum. Almost 50% of all the individuals who are participating in this conversation are polling in that extreme end. The average is 7.6. I can see a lot more people now coming online. That's fantastic. So we'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll move on to question 2. For those of you who already done question 1, I'll just tell you question 2. I'm going to ask you in 1 word or 2 words maximum in English, what is the reason for your stress and anxiety right now? So we're going to move across to question 2. Let's see, your average is 7.4, and you've got roughly 55% of people in that top category. So I'll stop that. I'll activate the second. So this is called a word cloud. And the way the word cloud will work is the more times the same word appears, the larger it becomes and the more towards the center of the screen it becomes. So right now, why are you feeling so stressed? Those people who put 9 and 8 and 10, why are you feeling so stressed? Job security. Okay, let's see. Let's see what else people say. So it's the same methodology. You should just see the second question come up on your slido.com right now. It's BF08. And I want you to insert in 1 word or 2 maximum, what is the reason for your anxiety? Money, job security, work, slow sales. So all of this is sort of collating together to the same theme, which is around work, right? We've got some other words coming up now. We've got family, we've got home, we've got, what is this? We've got understand, I don't know what that understand would relationships, slow sales, pressure, security. So let's look at the things that we're getting here. So number 1 is clearly work, and all the permutations of work is number 1. We've got health, we've got coronavirus on there. So number 2 is probably related to our health, well-being. And then of course, we've got elements around relationships and family. So number 3 is relationships and family. Thank you very much for everyone who participated in that. I'll now just toggle back to the presentation. So let's see how you compared versus the rest of India. So we've been conducting this poll now week on week since the lockdown began, lockdown 2.0 started. We've had, these numbers are from last week. So now we've had close to 20 different cohorts go through this. Roughly almost 5,000 people have participated in this. But here's the data from the first 3 weeks. You can see the average stress score at 6.1, with the people in the extreme category at 28%. That had risen by week 2. It came down slightly in week 3, but the average across India, across these 3 weeks, 2,500 individual data points, is a stress score of 6.2. You would remember, as a cohort, came in at I think it was 7.2 or 7.4. So y'all are already significantly higher versus the rest. The second thing to note is the overall number of people in the extreme stress category is at 32%, but within this cohort of people, we've got above 50%. So we're going to address that as we go through this. Clearly, a lot of reasons why people are stressed right now. And what's interesting for me, whenever I do this conversation, is that people always feel that I'm unique, or you won't understand my needs. My industry is different. My work is different. My position in my company is different. Every time I've done this, exactly the same 3 top stressors come up in exactly the same order. Number 1 is job security and work, which we saw today. Number 2 is health and well-being, which we saw today. And number 3 is family and connections, which we saw today. So we are all descending down Maslow's hierarchy of needs and trying now to come to grips with those basic requirements in our home lives. So what are the mindsets that we had coming into the system? The first one that I often get spoken to is, I will not survive this lockdown. And I don't just mean it from a morbid point of view around one's own health and well-being. It's also the elements that people are anxious about, whether their team will be together, whether their business model will still be relevant, whether their organization will still exist in the new normal. So there's a lot of conversation about what does survival mean for me, my organization, my business. Number 2 is work-life disintegration. There is a huge disparity between the expectation we all had of what work from home would mean, what we read about, what we would watch, or even some of us used to practice work from home before, and the reality of what work from home is today. Frankly, in our culture right now, we don't have the household help that we used to. So our homes are now also restaurants. They're also hospitals or doctor clinics. They're also schools. They're also grocery stores. So we're doing everything right now. And the differential between expectation and reality is always the cause for the seeding of unhappiness, which is central to the pent-up frustration that we're beginning to see. And number 3 is in terms of empowerment. People feel that the only thing they can actually constructively do is either wash their hands or wear a mask. Now, both of those are very important, as is physical distancing. But I want to convince you that actually there is a lot more that you can do in this period that we're living in and creating going forward. So let's try and appreciate the new normal. Let's reframe from the negative to the positive. Number 1 is we actually have more time. If we're being purely logical about this, we have more time because we're no longer traveling. I used to spend 2-3 days a week in the air in hotels, at conferences speaking. That's completely gone away. And I'm sure for a lot of you, business travel has completely come to a standstill. Number 2, for people living in metros, our commute times have become 0, not 0. It takes me about 6 seconds to walk from my bedroom to the living room. So that's my commute time. And I'm pretty sure it's about the same for many people as well. So our commute times have come down to 0. Our social commitments, there were things we had to do in the old days. We would have to go for our boss's birthday party or someone's wedding or this or some third cousin's religious function or puja, etc. So there are lots of social commitments which we just don't have to do right now. So logically, we have more time. That's number 1. It may not feel that way, but we actually do have more time. Number 2 is this gives us an opportunity to strengthen bonds with relatives, with people living very far away, with our own friends. I love looking at my social media feeds these days because it's full of people I've not met or spoken to in so long who are reconnecting online, college reunions, university get-togethers, family birthday parties being celebrated with people living on all parts of the world, etc. So it's a great opportunity for us to strengthen bonds if we want to. Number 3 is growing skills. We always used to say, I don't have time to do this. Why aren't you going to the gym? I don't have time. Why aren't you learning that language or that skill that you always wanted to do. I don't have time. That doesn't exist right now. There is an opportunity if we want to actually grow the skills. And I'll share a personal story. My mother-in-law, she's 67. She's still working. She's a physiotherapist, so she's doing her consults remotely. And at the age of 67, she decides in the lockdown that she's going to take up something that she's dearly wanted to do since she was a child, which is to play what I consider as probably the hardest string instrument ever, which is the violin. So she's learning how to play the violin online. And for my son, my elder boy, it was his 4th birthday a few weeks ago. My mother-in-law, she learns how to play the happy birthday song. She records it on a video and she sends it to him. And for me, that was so inspiring because on one hand, there's someone who I look up to in the silver years of their age, still functioning professionally, but deciding to pursue something that she's been dreaming about since she was probably 6 or 7 years old. But then not only does she start that journey, she records it in a digital memory and she shares it with my son. And that memory will be with us for posterity. That's such a beautiful family moment. And I think there are so many similar moments like this which are happening or can happen with so many of us around the country. And the last thing is the opportunity to reflect. When we were on this corporate rat race, the treadmill towards success defined by society as either money or power, we gave up a whole lot of internal wants and needs, sacrifices that we got clouded out by the constant noise and humdrum. And in that constant noise, we forgot that we actually have this inner wisdom within each of us that we can tap into if we really want to, that will allow us to become a better version. And now is that opportunity to do so. Now is the opportunity to look within and consider, what is the version of me that I want to be on the other side, in the new normal, in the next normal, whatever the word is? What is the you 2.0 that you want to become, that you've always dreamt about? So look inwards and then move outwards through that process. 60% of people that I talk to tell me that they feel that they're working more right now. I'm sure a lot of you on the call probably resonate with that. But only 40% and 40% of them feel that they're not being any more productive. So we are busying ourselves in this uncertain time, probably because we either don't have much control and we just want to keep busy, but we're not actually gaining much from this process. And hopefully today acts as that turning point for a lot of you. So the mindset shift that I want to start to create with you is, if I can manage my time and my stress better, I can actually accomplish a lot during this lockdown. And number 2 is, if I can adopt the practices and the productivity hacks that Marcus will share with me today, I might be in a position to navigate my home and my work better during this work from home period. So we may hate the period of time we're living in, but we could, if we wanted to, pause, thank the moment, and reflect about the better version of yourself that you want to be. So let's move on. Let's start with prioritizing self-care. A message so many of you have heard thousands of times on an aircraft as it taxis towards the runway is, remember to put your own oxygen mask on first before even thinking about helping anyone else. And there's a lot of science and wisdom in that. So we're going to be focusing on 4 main elements: sleep, fuel, movement, and meditation. And all of this pertains to the period of time that we're living in right now. So a lot of you would know about the importance of sleep. You may have heard me or someone else talk about how sleep is so important, how you should be getting at least between 7 to 9 hours every day. It is nature's most freely available performance enhancing tool that we have, which is so deeply underappreciated and underutilized. But why sleep is so important right now is because of these 4 things. Number 1, it has the potential to enhance your immune system. See, we have white blood cells in our immune system. There are many types of white cells, and one of which is called the T helper cell. Now, the T helper cell on its surface has these receptors whose role it is to scavenge around inside the body. It sticks, it recognizes and it sticks to foreign bodies like antigens. It takes it back into the central immune system, which is either in the bone marrow of the big bones or in the spleen. And that's where antibody production happens. This is precisely what we need to be happening right now. A lot of you would anecdotally remember when you've been working for many days on end and had a busy couple of weeks. You probably have a scratchy throat, a runny nose, a sinusitis, etc. And it's exactly for this particular mechanism that I've just described. So ensure you're sleeping well so that your immune system is firing on all cylinders. Number two, sleep directly correlates with how well chronic diseases are managed. Diseases like hypertension, metabolic disease, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, etc. And with COVID-19, what we do know for certain is that the entry point of the virus into our cells is mediated by the ACE receptor. And that is something which is also critical in diseases like hypertension and cardiovascular disease. So by ensuring that you have a good level of sleep, you're actually mitigating the background chronic diseases that you might either have or be prone to, and just giving your body the best maximum chance that if it faces the virus, you are fighting fit as best as you can be. Number three, sleep normalizes brainwave activities. And multiple studies through the years have shown that the impact of sleep on the neocortex, so that's the new part of the brain, the cerebellar hemispheres that sit up in the skull, particularly the frontal lobes, which are at the front of my brain here, that is where your executive functionality resides, decision-making and your personality. And we know that people who sleep better, well-rested individuals, are better able to regulate their emotions. They're more they're more adaptive, they're less reactive. And they exhibit greater empathy and compassion towards others, all of which are qualities and skills that we need right now. And number four, from a hormonal point of view, there are two hormones which are critical for sleep. One is ghrelin, which makes you feel less hungry, and the other is leptin, which makes you feel satiated. And so what we find is when you sleep more, your craving, those hunger cravings, particularly towards the unhealthy sugary foods, is depressed. And so overall, your entire fuel system is in a much better position to combat any diseases. So how can we improve your sleep? Here are 3 micro steps. So a micro step is a Thrive word for an action which is too small to fail. What we do is we take large scale behavior changes, we distill it down into really, really small actions, each of which can easily be accomplished. And when you start to do a lot of them, you will automatically notice that you see huge changes in your behavior. So I'm going to be presenting to you about 20 or 25 micro steps. Feel free to click a photograph of anything you see, or we've got a lot more content available on thriveglobal.in or thriveglobal.com. Number one, set a news cutoff. The media is fueled with cortisol and adrenaline. You only need to watch one of those evening news shows hosted by presenters whom I won't name. And the entire screen is full of color, of noise, of data points. You don't have a clue. Everyone's just shouting at each other. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. And unfortunately, the news is always negative. That's just the way it's designed, right? It fuels itself on fear. Elements that you can do without completely, especially when you're trying to rest and go to sleep. So what I recommend is by 8:30, 9 o'clock maximum, assuming you've got about an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours before you sleep, do not consume the news. I guarantee you the number of COVID cases tomorrow will be higher than it is today. I guarantee you that overall the news will be worse than it is today. You're not going to miss anything from it, but it'll reduce the stress hormones in your body and it'll put you in a better position for your sleep. The second thing, which is related to the first, is we say this at Thrive, is before you go to bed, gently escort your digital devices outside of your bedroom and plug them in to recharge in a separate room so that you can recharge in your bedroom. You see, the phone, it's a wonderful invention and we desperately need it right now to stay connected. But there are so many reasons why it causes problems. The blue light, which gets emitted from the screens, suppresses the secretion of melatonin, which is a sleepy hormone from the pineal gland, and that interferes significantly with your natural sleep wave cycle. When you wake up in the middle of the night, you responsibly reach out for the phone to check the time. You inadvertently check WhatsApp or the news or social media, etc. It will again raise your cortisol levels, etc. So for a variety of reasons, we highly recommend you do not disturb, you disconnect from digital technologies, from screens before you sleep. And if you're anxious about someone not being able to get in touch with you, well, that's why we have landlines. That's why we have dumb phones, right? I'm sure they still exist in the house, maybe in a drawer somewhere. Find it, give it to the people you love and care most, and then start executing on this. And the last one is gratitude. Gratitude is engaged in a very different physical part of the brain to where uncertainty and stress resides. So what happens by expression of gratitude, you create a physical reframe of neuronal activity away from the negative towards the positive, which is a very powerful tool to utilize, particularly in the mood setting before you want to rest and relax. And there are lots of ways of expressing gratitude. People I know keep a gratitude journal, so they physically write down 3 things that they're most grateful for. I personally use a technique called a habit stack. What that means is I take an existing habit or behavior and I link the new habit or behavior to that. So for example, I brush my teeth every night before I sleep, as I hope a lot of you do. And whilst I'm brushing, I use that time to think about the 2 or 3 things that I've most enjoyed or been most grateful for the day gone by. It's a very powerful thing to do. Or the other thing that I really like is, because we're all just washing our hands more often now, every time you wash your hands, think about just one thing that you're grateful for. And the reason why this is really nice is it creates these repeated bursts of positivity through the day and just reminds you of just happy moments rather than saving it all up for the night as well. Now, let's move on to fueling the body. I often get asked, Doc, what's the best thing that I should be eating? And frankly speaking, you don't have to have gone to medical school like I did for 6 years or done a nutrition degree, etc. It's actually really simple. Here it is. Picture an image of a plate, and I've got one on the slide, so it makes it easy for you. And divide that plate into 4 quarters, 4 quadrants. Now, 2 quarters, 1/2 of the plate has to be packed with color, fruit, and vegetables. Color equals good. It means vitamins, it means micronutrients, and it means minerals, right? So have at least half the plate with these colorful fruit and veg. 1/4 will now have whole grains, and there are lots available, whether it's glutinous or non-glutinous, lots of different grains available. The other quarter will be protein. If you're someone who eats meat, then try and stick to the white meats, chicken, eggs, and fish. I'm personally in favor of leaning towards plants for a multiple number of reasons. But there are so many different options, even within the vegetarian portion as well. So 1/4 is now protein, healthy plants and oils, and ensure you're staying hydrated. So if you're a woman, you need to have 2 liters of water every day. If you're a man, you need to have 3 liters of water every day. That's a nudge for me to drink. So here are 6 things that you must make sure you're having right now so that your immune system is functioning at its best, your resilience is highest, and your mood is as elevated as you can be. I often get asked, Doc, just tell me six vitamins or 6 tablets that I should have. Well, these are it. Click a picture. I've put the 6 things. I've also put the food items, the natural food items where you can find these things, both Indian food sources and Western food diet sources as well. And as I said, these 6 will keep you fighting fit and fighting strong, including your mood as well. Now, micro steps to help you stay hydrated. So the sugar is the devil. 70% of your entire immune system actually resides in your gut. And that's why this whole concept of the microbiome has become something of much increasing importance right now. And what we found is that sugar directly leads to inflammation, which suppresses the immune system. This is a situation that you don't want to be happening to you right now. So swap any sugary-based drinks for water-based ones instead. Lots of citrus fruits available right now, so you can add that to make it more colorful, to add some flavor. Pineapple, oranges, lemons, you can put mint, cucumber, ginger, whatever you want. Add different things. Add ice, and if you want it to be fizzy, you can add some non-sugared soda, so it can become a little bit more interesting for you. The other habit stacking technique is that because we're all wiping surfaces down so much more and washing our hands, every time you do that, also have a glass of water so that you stay hydrated. Now, I'm a marathon runner. I dearly miss my outdoor running. I miss my cycling. I miss my swimming. And I know for a lot of people, they miss going to the gym or their fitness classes, etc. But this is no reason why you should not be physically active right now. In fact, it's actually more important now for a couple of reasons, right? The first is the ergonomics for how we're working. Not everyone is able to be sitting at a desk like I am now having a conversation. A lot of people, and I've seen photographs of this, they are sitting on their bed, they're sitting on their sofa, they're in a weird posture. That ergonomic will lead to muscle tightening and cramping. Number two, we're not getting the daily commute steps that we would ordinarily get, either jumping in and out of taxis or buses or aeroplanes or metros, etc. So all of our overall physical activity level has gone down. We need to make sure that we lift it up. There are so many freely available classes online. My wife and I, we do, it's called Pop Sugar. I know Cult Fit is doing a lot. So you can do it live, you can do it in pairs, you can do it in an online community, or you can just do it on your own as part of a pre-recorded message. There are so many different ways of staying active. Make sure you're flexing out, make sure you're staying supple, your joints, etc., particularly your neck, your back, your legs, and your hands as well. And here are just a couple of really funny videos that I found on TikTok to show you how innovative people are being. And the one on the left is from the US. We've heard of them hoarding toilet paper. Well, this gentleman is using toilet paper for a little bit of fun action. The guy on the right, he's from Italy. I've seen a South Indian version of this as well. And he's clearly someone that misses running. So he's taken some washing up liquid, he's put it on the floor, put some water, and he's made his own treadmill. A disclaimer here, if you try this at home, it's at your own risk. Please don't email in saying, Marcus told me to try this and I had a nasty fall. It's just a method to innovate for you to find ways of creating more movement. And here are a couple of micro steps. Number one, every time your call finishes early, take a moment or two just to stretch. Do a plank or just stretch your neck, your back, your arms, etc. If you go to the washroom, do the same, etc. Or what you can do is, if you've got a lot of Zoom calls and they don't all require you to be face-to-face in terms of video, you can actually just put your earphones in or your AirPods and just walk up and down the room. You will be surprised what your step count can be just by doing this during a couple of calls during the day. Your step count can be really significantly high. The other thing to remember is, just as sleep is nature's freely available underutilized resource, breathing is exactly the same. Breathing is a form of meditation. Meditation activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite to the sympathetic one, which is fight and flight. Parasympathetic is rest and relax. And what breathing does is it can actually normalize brainwave activity and actually physically grow the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain which is associated with long-term memory. And there is this ironic anxiety associated with meditation. What is the best time of day? What is the right position? I have all these thoughts going through my mind. How do I know I'm doing it properly, etc. So to deal with all of that, I thought, let me just take 90 seconds right now and show you how easy it can be. All I need you to do is to be sitting up. I want your bum and your back at 90 degrees to each other. Take your palms and just rest it either on your lap or on your knees in front of you. Make sure your phone is switched off right now or on silent. And just close your eyes and just listen to the tape that I'm going to be playing for you.
Welcome to a thrive moment of calm or shanti. Now, follow each step. Close your eyes and relax your breath. Become aware of your inhalation and exhalation. Slow down your breath to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for a second and exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. As you exhale, release all the tension. As you inhale, allow yourself to recenter, to stay very calm by slowing down your breath. And one more time, to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wonderful. The simple act of breathing deeply relaxes your mind and body, improving your focus and concentration. Stay calm, re-centered in your breath as you open your eyes and return to your next activity.
So you can see how easy that was. This is a technique called box breathing. You breathe in for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you breathe out for 4 counts, and you repeat this process 4 times. And as I said, this has been proven to normalize brainwave activity, particularly when you're either going into a stressful situation or having just come out of one. It can take just 90 seconds to do. Now, let's apply all of these learnings towards being more productive. And by the way, everything that I've spoken to you about already, whether it's sleep, fuel, the mind, or exercise and movement, all of which leads to greater productivity in your life because it charges that internal battery of yours. The first thing I want to talk about is resilience. This is a word which is being spoken about a lot right now. And I fear that there is misunderstanding and anxiety associated with this word. The first thing to appreciate is that resilience is a skill. It's like kicking a ball. It's like riding a bicycle. The more times you do it, the better you become at it. All resilience is the ability to see and experience a challenge in front of you, to reframe and respond to that challenge in a way that allows you to take control. And all of the tips that I've already spoken to you about all enhance your natural ability to build resilience because it puts you at a stronger foundation to face, to reframe, and then face the challenge which is thrown to you. But now I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to look at particular attributes to actually build out that resilience and that productivity. And the first thing I want to speak about is focus, because 70% of people that I talk to tell me that they can't focus as well. 85% feel that their work will actually be negatively impacted because of this. So here are a couple of interesting micro steps associated with focus and productivity. The first thing to do is dress the same way as you would for work. A lot of people, myself included, wake up from the bed, come out in our pajamas, open up the desk and start working, open up the laptop and start working. Now, we would never dream of doing that in the office environment. And it's a physical reframe. By actually wearing the clothes, you're telling your mind that you're getting in gear to start working. Now, I know there is a Zoom outfit, and here you can see me. I was being interviewed on a television, on the news last week, talking about the government's response to COVID-19. And I'm in a suit from the waist up. I didn't have any pants. This is my wife. She clicked a photo from the corner of the room. And so I know we're all wearing these Zoom outfits, which is fine, but at least we're getting into gear. For women, I often get told that just the application of a little bit of lipstick or some earrings can actually make you feel the same way as well. The second technique is to pick a physical signal that you can tell other people around you that you're engaging in deep work. So one way of doing this is actually to have a dedicated workspace in your home. Whether it's a desk in the living room or another room, etc. Find an area which you know when you get to, you're going to work from there and only work from there. Don't let the work spill over into other parts of the home. It's important for you, but it also sends a signal to other people around you that when you're there, you should be left alone and you're going to be doing work. If you don't have the opportunity or the privilege, and I know this is particularly important for people who are living in metros in smaller homes, then something as physical as just putting up a cloth or a sheet in the living room to create a little sense of division, or some boxes or some books even, just something that makes you feel like you're in a separate space. Or worse still, if need be, just a simple set of headphones, noise cancellation or normal headphones. It just sends that signal to other people, but it tells them for yourself as well. So let's now look at stress. We saw how high the stress scores were, how you related to the rest of the cohort, and what the three things were, right? We spoke about work, we spoke about health and health and wellness, and we spoke about relationships and family. But what exactly is stress? Now, stress unfortunately gets a bad rapport these days, because when we think about it, we only think about the negative connotations. Physiologically speaking, stress is a very useful mechanism that has been devised and stayed with us through the millennial evolution that human beings have gone under. The limbic system associated with the adrenal glands through the action of cortisol and adrenaline. This is the fight or flight mechanism. When I was on the savannah and there was a saber-toothed tiger that was trying to hunt me down for his lunch, I needed to be able to outrun it, so I needed that cortisol burst to get me going. When I'm driving my car right now on the ceiling at 100 kilometers an hour, and then somebody steps out in front of me, I need to have the microsecond reflex to shift my car to save myself and to save the other person. These are all physical applications of the stress response. The problem is that the same response is activated when there is no physical threat, when there is a perceived danger, such as consuming the news, reading your balance sheet, or thinking about the health or wellness of your elderly parents or loved ones who are living very far away. All of this activates the same response. Now, in the acute setting, it's not a problem. The problem with stress is when it becomes chronic, when we can't actually do anything about it. It starts eating away at our insides physically and also in our minds, and leads to the whole host of chronic diseases that we see. Now, we at Thrive have been working with Stanford to actually understand what stress is. And what they were able to identify is that all human beings have one of 8 default physical settings in our brain. These are called neural circuits. They are physical connectomes, so different parts of the brains which are wired together. And each of us fit into one of these 8 categories. And if you'd like to know more, you can reach out to me. And we have a program called Thriving Minds, which help individuals identify for themselves which classification I fall into, so that I can recognize those habits and then start to change them. But I'll give you some examples. Rumination is someone who thinks about the same thing over and over and over again. If you're out there, you probably recognize this. And you can't find the solution because you're just always caught up in the same thought. Negative bias. These are people who only ever see the glass half empty. They cannot appreciate the opportunity which exists within the challenge. Inattention is the type of person which the diagram depicts. They have multifocal areas of activity and they can't channelize that energy into one particular direction to develop a solution. So each of us out there fall into one of these 8 categories. And by the way, everything I've already spoken to you about already deals with these at a generic level, right? If you're sleeping better, you will automatically deal with stress and resilience. If you're fueled well, if you're active, if your mind is healthy, if you're focusing more, etc. But I've got some specific micro steps now just for stress. And this is my favorite slide out of everything that I'll be presenting to you today. It's called Creating Coronavirus Worry Time. Now, what that means is every day I want you to schedule in your diary for 5 to 15 minutes and the same time each day, a specified time that you will actively worry about all the things that you told me about, whether it's a job, whether it's your family, whether it's your health and well-being. The way this micro step works is 2 ways, and assuming you do it properly. I guarantee you, if you get to 3 o'clock and that's your worry time, and if you don't do it, you try and trick your brain will trick you back. It's much smarter than you are, believe me. So the way this works is that when you start to repeat this pattern, your brain will understand that it is a pattern and it will stop sending you the background signals through the rest of the day, because it knows that it's going to have a dedicated point in time when it can focus on stress and anxiety. Number 2 is you subtly begin to shift into a solution mindset. So because your brain understands that, okay, we've reached that time and now I need to start thinking about this, it automatically starts to think about, well, what are the solutions? Because it knows it has a limited period of time to actually think about these worries. So this is a really, really powerful micro step that we've developed, which is very helpful in this period of time. The second thing is about scheduling. So I was in the Air Force for 4 years. And I remember in one of my first sessions, the drill sergeant, he told me that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You see, strategy is just one thing, but real success in life comes from the execution of the tactics at the operational level. So in all of this uncertainty that surrounds us, we need to start to take control over the elements which are in our sphere of control. And one helpful way of doing that is actually maintaining and keeping a proper schedule. So every Monday, put in your schedule all of your professional tasks, all of your personal tasks, all the times you need to schedule your son or daughter's Zoom call for their school, the time that you need to go grocery shopping, the time that you need to organize the medicine for your parents, whatever it is, put it all in your calendar and make it transparently available to your team, letting them know when you are available and when you're not available, and then start executing on those elements. You see, 85% of people right now are feeling disconnected. They're losing touch with their co-workers, with their team members, etc. And so for team leaders, it's really important. In fact, 95% of all the people we polled told us that they wanted their team leader to communicate right now. They understand that the leader may not have all the information available. All they want is transparent, candid, regular communication. So if you're a leader, make sure you're setting up time each day with your team. And it can be as simple as just asking people, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What is the thing that you want to work on today? And then maybe at the end of the day, just checking in and saying, how did the day go? What worked? What didn't work? But make sure you're setting up that opportunity to connect with other people around you. And the other thing to recognize is that the office environment was associated with micro moments of fun, right? It wasn't just work, work, work all the time. We used to bump into colleagues at lunchtime. We used to bump into someone on the way to the washroom or at the water cooler. We used to enjoy flirting with someone. We used to like talking about the latest cricket match or the latest movie with someone, etc. All of that is not existent right now because we're only using the digital tools for work. Zoom can actually be used for other things. And I know lots of companies are beginning to do that right now. So why don't you organize a virtual coffee break or a date with a friend or someone who you've been meaning to ask out for a long time, or just catch up with someone else and talk about non-work related things. Just ask people how you're doing and just use this opportunity to stay connected and, as I said, grow your relationships with people. And the very last thing that I wanted to talk about in this session was about sharing the load. It's something that I feel is very important for each of us to do right now. Because the environment of our homes, as I said, which is also now the doctor's clinic and the restaurant and the school and the office environment, we cannot let any one person bear the maximum brunt of that physical activity because it'll wear them down and it'll make them prone to the sickness and the illness. So we each need to make sure that we're contributing at home. That's the important part. The other thing to realize is if you're on the other end and if your husband or wife is cooking for the first time or doing the dishes or the laundry, don't be a perfectionist. If it's not done up to the level that you expect, it's okay. People are trying. We're just trying to help right now. Enhance the productivity because that is more contagious and it's what we need more of in our lives right now. So whether in the home environment or in the office environment, make sure that you're sharing the load. And I've got 2 micro steps for you. Number 1 is take just 5 minutes every week and have a conversation with your partner and talk about who's going to be doing what, who's going to do lunch, who's going to do dinner, who's going to do groceries, who's going to do medicine, who's going to look after kids, who's going to look after their parents, whatever it is, divide it up, put it in your calendar, make it transparently available to everyone and just start doing it. Take control over the elements which we have control over. And the last thing is for leaders. Our job as leaders is not to occupy space, it's to create space. Now is a fantastic opportunity for all of our members of our team to build that muscle of leadership, to become more autonomous, to express the things that they want to do at work. And if they come to you and tell you that they're having some challenges at home because either they've got kids or they've got elderly parents, etc., create the space and make it okay for them to deal with those problems. Because ultimately, once we're all trying to leverage the technology to our maximum advantage, we need to remember that we cannot sacrifice our humanity in that process. So onward, upward and inward. I hope that for a lot of you, you got something from this. I hope the micro steps were helpful. And we've got about 10 minutes now, so I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll just stop my screen share. There we are.
Well, Dr. Ranney, we got a lot from this presentation. In fact, we've got one question where somebody's saying, can you share the presentation? But I have my own questions. I'm going to focus on other people's questions, our participants' questions though. Ritika wants to know, in the lockdown, since all of us are at home, how do you propose to strike the perfect work-life balance? I know you touched upon this topic, but it's nice for us to reinforce how do you strike that balance. Your survey also shows that people actually are feeling that they're working longer hours now.
Absolutely. I think the first appreciation is to recognize that there is no perfect balance. There never was, and there cannot be in this situation in time, right? So let's forgive. Let's be more forgiving of ourselves. Let's try not to be superheroes and just accept that what we're doing is good enough in the first place, right? The second thing you can start to take control over is the boundary. Now, it's very hard to create boundaries because we are working in the same environment. At least in the old days, I know technology was always with us, but it was a physical differential in terms of the environment. Right now, it's the same. And that's why I encourage people to think about, can you create a small space within your home which is dedicated towards your work? And that starts to begin to create the boundary. Can you create signals to other people to let them know that you are working? Can you create signals to yourself, such as wearing the type of clothes that you would need to let yourself know that you're working? And then to recognize that this period that we are living in is not something which is just being restricted to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, which a lot of people originally thought. Right now, there is the realization, which is why we're seeing anxiety and stress scores slowly go upward, because people have come to recognize that actually this is going to be the way life is going to be now for months, maybe years. So what does the new normal look like for me? What is my routine? What is my rhythm? And what do I want to get out of this period of time, right? It's okay to have fun. My wife and I over lunch today, we were just talking about how guilty we feel if we're just doing nothing, because we have this mindset that, oh, I need to be looking after the kids, or I should be doing something for work, or is everything taken care of at home or with my parents? Why can't we just spend time with ourselves anymore? So let's not feel guilty. Let's try and create those little boundaries and just take control of the elements that we can do.
Mm-hmm. There's a question from Ayush, asks you, how do we measure mental health? What are the signs of good mental health? I mean, that's a big question.
Yeah, no, it's a very important one. I think I'll start by stating that mental health is a continuum, right? We each have highs, we each have lows, and we know for ourselves how we feel when we're at the high. We know how we feel at the low. Mental health is not like diabetes, where I can do a blood sugar test on someone and there's a score, and I know less than this score, you're okay. Between this and this, you're pre-diabetic. After this, you're a diabetic, right? It doesn't exist like that. There is no truly objective test for mental health. Firstly, it's a spectrum. And secondly, there are so many elements to it. But each of us will know for a fact of what our default settings are, what our range of emotions are. But here are a couple of things that you can consider for yourself. And I'll also give you some things to spot signs of in other people as well, particularly your team leader and you're managing them. So in yourself, sleep. So when your mood is disturbed, you can either sleep too much or you can sleep too little. Different people veer off in different directions. So how much are you sleeping right now, and how fresh do you feel afterward? Number two is your eating habits. Are you eating too much or are you eating too little? Again, people veer off in different directions. Number three is around your mood that I told you about, whether you're waxing or waning, and where you are in that particular spectrum. And the fourth thing is around your performance, like how productive do you feel currently. Now, if you're a team member, if you're a team leader, here are a couple of things that you could notice of other people. Firstly is what does that person look like? Are they suddenly appearing slightly more disheveled? Are they not shaving? Is their hair not in place? Are they stopped wearing makeup? So are there any physical changes to their appearance which might give you an indication to their underlying mental status? The second is the language. So we each have a pitch, we have a tone, we have a cadence. Has something changed in the way this person is speaking? Are they speaking loudly or less in volume? Are they using explicitives more often? Are they losing their anger? Are they becoming more angry? Are they losing their temper more often? Are they short-circuiting? And lastly, is productivity. How productive are they being? So here, these are a couple of things for self and for others as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Snehal asks this question, and of course, this would probably mean recapping of your entire presentation, but this also gives all our viewers who've joined in probably in the middle of your session to hear a shorter version of what you just presented. How do you relieve stress? I know you gave us some micro tips, but would you like to just quickly, I mean, for me, it seems so simple. Sleep well, eat right, exercise, breathe, meditate, and spend that 15 minutes a day to figure out what is it that's bothering you. And, you will come to the solutions, but I leave it to you, Dr. Ranney.
Oh, you got it. You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. Look, nothing that I've said to any of you today is rocket science. There is nothing that we don't really know about. It's just creating that awareness, and like everything in life, it's not the idea, it's the execution. And that's why the technique that we've developed, which is called the micro step, has been designed in such a way that you physically can't fail at it, right? A micro step for sleep is ensuring you have really black curtains, or ensuring that the temperature of your room is between 19 and 20 degrees Celsius, because that's the optimal temperature band for sleeping. So we've got hundreds of these micro steps. I know I gave you your audience about 2025. They can check more out on the Thrive Global website as well. But just find a micro step that works for you and just get started. And you'll see how easy and how addictive they become, that you can start to stack one little micro step on top of the other, and you'll slowly see such big behavior changes.
Don't watch news definitely before sleeping. I think so much negativity right now around news, Dr. Ranney. I would recommend people, because, being a news junkie myself, that is something that I need to carry from this conversation. I'm going to ask you one more question. Chandan Singh wants to know, how does someone really understand or know that his or her immune system is working perfectly in order to defeat any situation, or take on any kind of illness if it attacks them? Are there signs of your immune system working very well, Dr. Ranney?
Yeah, so there are biological markers that we can do to assess it, but from a holistic point of view, a couple of things. Are you someone who's more prone to a scratchy throat, a runny nose, sinusitis, swelling of the eyes or tearings of the eyes in the mornings? How do you feel? How congested do you generally feel in the morning? That's one thing. The second thing is a lot of people have gut disturbances, because there's a very strong interlinkage between our immune system. I said 70% of our immune system resides in our gut, but we also have a lot of neuronal cells within the gut. So that microbiome connection with the central nervous system is very strong. So for a lot of people, they tend to have IBS-like symptoms, as irritable bowel. So either flatulence or diarrhea, constipation, etc. So that's another set of muscle cramps. That's another set of things that they can watch out for. Yeah.
Okay. One question. I've become very less communicative after the lockdown. I don't feel the urge to talk to anyone anymore. Am I going through a mental outburst? Seems like the person is, isn't it? It's an anonymous question.
Yeah, so I think without knowing what that individual's baseline is, it sounds like there's a deviation from baseline. And therefore, there is some change in his or her mental status right now. That doesn't mean it's anything to be concerned over. As I said, for a lot of us, we have something called cyclothymia. So we have periods of highs and periods of lows. And this may just be a natural period of low. We all get it from time to time. But the point is for that individual to recognize, do I feel that this is something more unusual than normal? And I recommend that person just talks to someone. It doesn't need to be a professional. It can even be a friend. And just talk to that person about how they're feeling. There are lots of resources available online. By the way, everything we spoke about, whether it's sleep, fuel, movement, or the mind, will all help with that mental status. So make sure that you're looking after the basics. You're putting your oxygen mask on first and talk to someone. And if you find that still isn't helping, there are professional resources available which you can tap into as well.
All right. Abhinav Gulati, and this is, again, a very interesting question. He probably will allow you to recap some of the key points from your presentation. How does one hack the new normal?
Yeah, okay. So that's actually a tough one. I think the appreciation is for us to be physically present, to bring whatever elements of uncertainty there are, which are under our sphere of influence, back into our control. So trying to create some structure, some normality around us. And thirdly, and I think most importantly, is the realization that this is with us for a period of time, and that I need to create my own rhythm, my own sense of routine through this process.
Mm-hmm.
Be positive. Don't let the uncertainty and the negativity get on top of you. Be positive.
That statement that you made, you can look at a glass half full or half empty. And with so much negativity around us, what's happening is that more people are just looking at the negatives rather than the positives of it. And you mentioned so many positives. Of course, we've got a great feedback also coming in. Dr. Ranney, I must share this compliment. This is the most mind-blowing presentation that we've seen, or webinar that we've done. So thumbs up to you. That's been extremely useful. My question is another very interesting one. You said that, look, we need to be able to find time to do a lot of things and grow in this period as well. with this sort of environment, what are the do we reskill? Do we really pay attention at softer skills? Like if I wanted to do music, do I do music? Or do we actually occupy ourselves in learning something which might make us more future-proof in our careers?
I think it's a healthy balance that needs to be set, right? For a lot of people, because there is so much uncertainty in terms of what the job situation will be like, there is a natural and frankly, there is a lot of chatter online as well. There is a tendency for people to think about any time that I physically have, I need to be doing an online course on a MOOC or one of these other, or attend a webinar or a session, etc., just to grow, right? So that I'm making the use of my time. The problem is that it's very easy to become completely exhausted and burnt out because of that process. And we are sacrificing on the elements that make us who we are as individuals, the fun, the joy, the growth, etc. So, and it's actually ironic you raised this question because it's precisely the conversation my wife and I were having at lunch. And we have consciously, so the first 8 weeks, both of us working professionals, both very ambitious, looking after the kids, we were both doing everything we physically could to ensure that we were maximizing on what was going on. But now the realization has set in that it's not sustainable. We were seeing it impact our own health and our own well-being. And we recognize it's not sustainable. And so we need to each take a conscious decision to slow down and look inward to that inner wisdom and just do things which are fun, because it's the only way that you can build a sustainable process of routine and rhythm through this uncertainty that we're going through.
Dr. Ranney, I think we've covered everything. And what's the most reassuring to hear from you is that, look, if you're going through anxiety, it's normal. Everybody is going through anxiety, and everybody is going through anxiety for probably the same reasons. Job security is number one, health and well-being is number two, relationships and family is number three. So you're normal in that way. And number two, everything can be dealt with. You can thrive if you just follow very, very simple steps and focus on just, taking those micro steps to reach a better place and to thrive in the new normal. I'm going to thank you for doing this for Brookfield Properties. We've had people, in fact, I've been looking at the count, about 45 people joined us on the closed Zoom webinar. There were another 120 people who've seen us at the Candor Tech Space Facebook page. So that's a really good participation. Thanks again for doing this for us and taking us through a really important and useful presentation.
My pleasure. I wish everyone well, and I hope we can all see each other soon.